Welcome to this experience of Lectio Divina, which is Latin for divine reading. This is an ancient form of prayer, but unique in the way we listen to what God may be speaking to us right now in the context of His Word. That's why it's considered a form of prayer. Though we're engaging with Scripture, we are creating intentional space for conversation with God, not just talking to God or only reading about God. Usually when we think of engaging Scripture, we focus on study or meditation or memorization, all very important. But in Lectio Divina, we focus on listening. So do your best during this time to listen prayerfully, not analytically. If you can, be in a place that allows you to really focus, and maybe write something down if needed. Definitely listen prayerfully, not analytically, and not self-critically. Just a listening posture for what God may be inviting, reinforcing, or otherwise highlighting for you today. We may sense something from God or we may not. We're just creating space and seeing what happens. I'll read through our passage, which is Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30 in the Message paraphrase. I'll read through that passage several times, and each time we'll hold a specific question before God and invite the Spirit to speak. We're creating space and seeing what happens. The first time I read through this, I'd invite you to simply pay attention. What stands out to you? Is there a particular word or phrase? If so, in the brief silence following the reading, please just jot it down or note it somewhere. What was the word or phrase that seemed highlighted to you as you listened? And then after that brief silence, I'll return with the next set of instructions. Jesus speaking to His disciples, both then and now. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Now, before we move on, please be sure to note whatever word or phrase stood out to you. Now, as we prepare to listen to God in this same passage as we read a second time, the question I'd love for you to hold out before God is this: to what area of my life does this word or phrase connect? Again, you might be tempted to reason an answer to that question. Most of us would. But see if you can't refrain from doing that and just listen. Create that space to see if something God might have to say to you in connecting that word or phrase to a relationship, a situation, or some other current reality in your life right now. So again, we're reading from Matthew 11, Jesus' words. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Now I'll leave it silent for another few seconds. Hold before the Lord this question: to what area of my life did that word or phrase seem to connect? Now, before we go on, be sure to know any sense you have from the Lord about a connection point that God is highlighting or revealing between the word or phrase that stood out to you and some area in your life. Without analyzing, just listening. So write that down. And then now for our third and final reading, we are returning, to this same passage. So often we move from one passage to the next to have more comprehension, and of course that's wonderful. But we're sitting in this, we're marinating, we're allowing God to speak to us in this passage several times. And this third question that I'd love for you to hold before God, again, not reasoning an answer, just holding before God, is this: is there an invitation? Might there be a next step, God, that you have for me to take? Could be related to the first two readings, could be something new. And again, you may sense something or you may not. We are simply creating space to listen. And this time I'll leave it silent for a bit longer after this reading for you to listen, note anything you hear from the Lord, and then be sure to respond to God as honestly as you can about that invitation or next step. You may resist it. You may welcome it. You may be surprised. You may say, God, you have my prior yes, whatever it looks like. I will follow you into this next invitation. So again, get comfortable, listen with your heart open, holding before God that prayerful question, do you have a next step for me? As we're reading for a third time from Matthew 11. Jesus saying, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. As we conclude our time, be sure to write down any invitation you sensed from God, as well as your response to that invitation, again, as honestly as you can. And finally, thanks for engaging with us today in this beautiful passage, in this practice of Lectio Divina.